I'm Andy Villamarzo, and with SBLive Sports Florida and the Coastal Football Podcast, and I'm here with Joe Frisaro. He's our South Florida sports expert. He was all over South Florida last year on the football scene. And Joe, we head into the 2023 season with South Florida once again being the hub of everything high school football, and it's no coincidence that you see Miami Central, chaminade-madonna, St. Thomas Aquinas, the usual suspects looking to be the top teams in the state. Just from what you saw last year, just these teams in South Florida, what kind of separates them from other teams around the state?
Oh gosh, I mean, what's really stood out, Andy, is the athleticism. The skill position players were ridiculous, and then when you get a Jeremiah Smith returning at chaminade-madonna and Josiah Trader there too, with just like world class speed as high school juniors. Now they're going to be seniors. It's just I they're just loaded, and they're not just there's you can't win district unless you look like that. That's the thing that got me at all the classifications, and I believe South Florida, meaning Miami-Dade and Broward counties, put 6 teams in the finals last year in the classes and won 4, and the 2 losses were, what was it, Homestead losing to St. Thomas, so that was 2 South Florida teams, and American Heritage losing to Miami Central. So the runner-ups were from here. That said, though, just the interior lines were huge, and the defense, the quickness, the speed. But what really got me is the intensity that they played. And what I found interesting was a lot of these schools, and we know a lot of these players, Andy, already have their D1 commitments in place before kickoff. Many do. Go back last year, look at American Heritage with a Brandon Innes, already locked into Ohio State, or a Ruben Bain, who carried his recruitment on. He eventually committed to University of Miami. Those guys didn't take a playoff. Basically, they played to win, and that really impressed me, because sometimes you don't always know that. For SBLive, covered a lot of baseball, and I saw pitchers, being shut down, or either for draft status or whatnot. Guys that health is one thing. Obviously, you're not asking anyone to pitch when they're hurt, but history has also shown, guys would be like, hey, I threw 98 miles an hour today, so I hit the radar gun. I know I'm going in the first round. I ain't pitching anymore this year. But those kids, pretty much to a player, kept going, and many of them were in the state finals. So that impressed me, meaning the intensity of their play, and just because I'm looking at, those are winning players, right? It's, in my opinion, it's like those are the guys that I know I want to. They go up to Ohio State like Innis or where these guys go. That you're getting a guy that's invested, and it should be really exciting. I mean, we know there's a lot of guys that have switched schools between the last year and this year. That's
Yeah.
kind of an off season. I know that you were knee deep in that, covering that all through the spring and into the summer, but it adds excitement for what we do.
And I guess we likened it to college football's transfer portal. It's kind of turned into it's transferred over to the high school scene, where it's not a thing, but it's kind of is a thing in a sense that there is that transfer portal that kids they kind of just hop in it and they go around to school. You have a guy like Stacy Gage, who played at Wharton last year in Tampa, and then he's now at St. Thomas Aquinas, which he forms one of the best backfields in the country with Jordan Lyle. So that's a 1-2 punch for Roger Harriet and this Aquinas team that's looking to win 5 straight state championships. And that's to be expected out of the Raiders, because they're a team that last year, obviously being able to beat Homestead on that first night on Thursday down in DRV. I mean, the thing that stood out to me that I can correlate with you is just up front, that offensive line was just mammoth. And the Broncos, I mean, if you didn't get to see this bunch out of Homestead, I mean, they're not a small group either. But
No.
when you look at this St. Thomas Aquinas line, and I mean, you got yourself a college. It looks like a college
Yeah, across
offensive
the
line.
board,
Let's just
across the
call it
board.
what it is.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
6'3".
Uh, yeah, I marvel. A lot of times I'll turn and tell a reporter that's next to me. I said, "That's that kid's 17 years old." Because you can't tell they're 6'5", 290 to 310, shoulder pads out to here, and they're 17 years old. And with the helmet on, you don't know the age. You could feel you're on the sideline of Alabama Georgia game or something like that. It's like that's how big the players are, and yeah, it's no accident. And yeah, I look at it too on the issue of the transfer is it's opportunity. Not every school provides opportunity, and I think what these kids are all looking for, these players are trying to create value for themselves, create the best situation for themselves to get to the next level of opportunity, and that's why you got the powerhouses that we have, and private schools have a little bit more leeway than some other schools as well. But the thing, let's stay on St. Thomas for a minute. Just the volume of their coaching staff, all the former big, NFL players or major college players that are on that staff. There's no shortage of excellent tutelage that these players are receiving as well.
Oh, absolutely. And then you go from a team like St. Thomas in Broward, then you go to Dade County, where, I mean, Jude Joseph has obviously built himself a dynasty here with the Rockets. And everyone talks about off of Northwest 95th Street. I mean, you got to no free rings, as coach would say, because you got to earn winning a state championship if you're going to be at Miami Central. And you wrote a really good piece last year about his meaning behind that. And I mean, it shows there's kids who will come from all over, and we're not kidding, not just the area, all over, meaning the country, because there's kids who have come from as far as California to go out and, I guess, take a page out of LeBron James, take their talents to South Beach, and go play for one of the top teams in the country. And they got a couple of defensive ends that have come in, and TA and TK Cunningham over from California, both Power 5 prospects. And then they got JC Evans. He was playing over in Texas. He's a potential starting quarterback for them. They got a three-way battle going on there. But the thing I noticed, Joe, and I know you saw Central multiple times last year, when I saw them upset IMG Academy 20-14 over in Bradenton, it's the swagger and the belief that they can win no matter where they go, and they know they can play with anyone. And it didn't matter how many Power 5 kids IMG Academy had. It was just more about what they are doing and not so much about what the other team's doing. And that was the thing Coach Joseph said right after that game was, I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about us. And if we take care of us, we're going to beat anybody. And that's the kind of swagger you expect out of a team out of the 305. But Coach Joseph, he doesn't just talk the talk, he walks the walk.
Yeah, he's quite animated. We saw him after he won state, and he didn't hold back. He was just unplugged, and he was letting it go. It was some really good copy for us content for us to write. And you're right. And I think what Coach Joseph should get a lot of credit for is the buy-in, because it would be easy to sit around and a kid, like I was saying earlier, to say, look, I got mine. I got my D1 scholarship. I feel a little achy. I may take this one off because I'm not going to risk anything. But they have a buy-in, and when they're losing, I covered that playoff game or district, I can't remember exactly which it was, against Northwestern, the rematch with them.
Yeah.
And they were literally 2 or 3 yards away from losing that game. That pass is slightly behind the running back, and he couldn't make the catch. Otherwise, it's a huge upset, and American Heritage is probably the state champ because they probably beat everybody else. Central is probably the only team that could beat them in that class. But when you see that, but that was a rivalry game. Northwestern is going to play Central, and they get everyone's best. And obviously we got coming up the Chaminade against Central game. Is this going to be, man? You know, that's just going to be must see, and we're looking forward to that already. And let's talk about Chaminade for a second, because they won the national title a couple of years ago after winning state. They go up. You saw them in state up in Tallahassee, just win easily. And then they go out and they play. What was it, Bishop Gorman? I get the name, Bishop Gorman.
Bishop
and
Gorman.
That was a powerhouse team. I think we were watching that game at the press box there, watching at state, and they just put a number on Chaminade. But what impressed me is how physical they were, and taking nothing away from them. They look clearly to be the better team. But I just wonder how that would have looked if Chaminade didn't literally play the week before, have to go from Hollywood, Florida, up to Tallahassee, which we're talking about the bottom of the state to the top of the state, win state, come home, after all the exhilaration of winning state, getting on a plane as high school kids, and going out there, playing a little bit of cold weather, and playing a powerhouse like Bishop Gorman, who had about a month to prepare, for Chaminade, probably has already had all their film, and so I think Chaminade's getting dinged a little bit, because they were clearly looking like the best team in the state of Florida. Then the crown ultimately, I think, went to Central because they didn't lose. But I think that if Chaminade didn't play in that game, we might be having the conversation like Chaminade's the national champs type of thing, or worthy of it. I think I'll be curious to see how they rebound and how they react to that, because they got their nose bloody pretty bad that day.
Yeah, they did. And Chaminade, for me, the couple times I saw him, which was the Broward County Elite Classic over there against St. John's out of DC, and then seeing him against Clearwater Central Catholic, which was a totally different program when you're comparing, and taking nothing away from Clearwater Central Catholic. Good 1M football team. Definitely they got some Power 5 talent across the board on that team. But when you look at a team like chaminade-madonna, and I likened them to the Golden State Warriors of high school football. I felt like they could just run you up and down the field and score at will. And all these passes are like three-pointers to them. They're just going down the field, attacking you vertically, and just challenging you with these this tandem of Jeremiah Smith and Joisa Trader, who just recently committed to Miami. I mean, you got these just two stud receivers, and they're challenging any secondary, saying stop these guys, because these are, I mean, let's face it, two of probably the top 10 class of 2024 prospects at wide receiver, and then you got the maestro of it all, the NC State commit Cedric Bailey at quarterback, and to me, he's the shooting guard of it all. I mean, he looks like a shooting guard, 6'6". 200 plus pounds. He's nimble on his feet. He can elude pressure. Just mechanically sound at the position. He stands tall. I mean, he is tall. So, I mean, even if he does stand tall, he's going to be. But he can just see and navigate everything, well, except the one game against Bishop Gorman. But, we throw in everything that kind of, got them that loss. But everything else, considering, Chaminade did look like the team that we were kind of saying this could be the national champion when it's all said and done. That one loss got them, but this season they returned many of the pieces that they had from last season. They do ask some questions, and they added. I mean, and this is a number staggering. We talked about those transfers earlier, Joe. The great Larry Bluestein told me just under 200 transfers between Broward and Dade. I mean, that is a crazy amount of movement when you're talking about two counties. We're not talking about the entire state. There's probably 200 when we're talking about all the other counties in the Sunshine State. Two counties, just under 200 transfers. I mean, and he's got a list that he updates every day. So I know Larry's got he's probably added some today. Who knows? But it's just crazy that the teams can lose and Chaminade lost a couple guys from last year. I know the running back they lost. They lost a couple linemen. So those are some things that people. Yeah, I guess those are the question marks surrounding the Lions. But other than that, they return all the pieces necessary. And that Week 5 game against Miami Central over at the Mecca at Traz Powell, that's going to be. I think that's the regular season game of the year, really. I know we got these out-of-state teams coming in, and they're going to be taking on the state powers. But if we're talking about in-state, one-on-one, Imano, Miami Central, chaminade-madonna, I don't think it gets any better than that.
No doubt. Yeah, that's going to be. It's the biggest game in the state of Florida, and as you note, the nation's right up there. And think about this: Chaminade's a couple of weeks later are going to be playing at American Heritage.
Yeah.
So it's like, but that's what makes it fun because they're not in the same class, so it doesn't necessarily affect state championship. But it kind of creates that fun first 6-7 weeks of the season before they get to districts, because that's when you can get these matchups. That's when you see the best against the best. Back to Cedric Bailey, I thought his ability to throw the long ball, really, it was good all year, but you could just see it week to week just how much more efficient. Yes, he had super fast guys, but if he can't get them the ball, it's not going to do you any good. But his touch and his ability to make those throws just seemed to grow and grow. And the other thing I think Cedric deserves a lot of credit for is we talk about when you have that much talent and you have that many weapons, and no one complains. He can distribute the ball to all of his weapons that they're happy with their 3 catches or whatever, because somebody needs to get the ball. And then they need to get, the junior or the sophomore right behind them the ball, because that's the next wave of player. So I really again, buy-in is really big for me in all sports that I cover. I really look into that, because you can always get a player or two just run numbers and go on and become a superstar. But how does that player buy into the team that he's on at that moment? And they really have it, and they do a great job there at Chaminade with that as well.
Yeah, and speaking of some other teams that are going to be on our state radar when we go into this preseason SBLive Sports Florida Power 25, and these are a couple teams you got to see when you were at the state championships. And I think they got good storylines going into this season, because both teams have kind of loaded up a little bit since they faced off against one another. And that is out of Class 4S, Lakeland and Venice. These two teams, and we saw Coach Bill Castle, he had the storybook ending. He won a state championship, and after almost 50 years at Lakeland, he goes into the sunset with his 8th state championship. He can retire, even though I did see a tweet. It was yesterday that he was out of practice. So I guess Coach Castle just can't stay away. He just has to be around high school football at this time of the year. This is when he's like, I got to be out there. I can't not be around the guys.
Yeah.
But Lakeland, they have a new head coach, Marvin Frazier. He was a assistant under Bill Castle the last couple of years, and he's going to be filling in pretty big shoes with Castles. And then you got on the other side of the spectrum the state runner-up in Venice from last year, and people probably looked at this game like Lakeland kind of ran away with it, but I think what's lost is that was a 21-14 game. Venice was in the game, and the Indians, since that time, they've gotten all kinds of new pieces into this program, and probably the biggest recently was Charles Lesser III. He transferred over from Sarasota Riverview, and I mean, he's a 5-star prospect at the cornerback position, could also play wide receiver. He's going to add depth on obviously both sides of the ball. And I mean, they've gotten a slew of talent in, and they got a kid, Jaden Glasser, who came from South Florida, transferred from South Plantation over into Venice. So, I mean, these two teams, you got to see them. What did you see out of each team that would tell you that they can make another run based on the talent that they had?
Well, didn't they have McLean last year? You know,
They did, and now
at
he's at
Lakeland.
Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, he had a guy. Remember, he was, obviously being talked to about the angle. He obviously flipped the commit. But my point is, when you're talking about that level, arguably the best DB in the country is at your program. Yeah, Lakeland. Yeah, they got talent. That's what it tells you. And again, what are you looking at to be state championship worthy? You need depth. You need talent. You need the coaching. They got it there. They're all elite coaches there. The programs, the off-season programs are great. A lot of these kids run track as a secondary sport, or maybe if you may play baseball or something. But they got athletes. I mean, it just shows. It speaks to our state, and it speaks to just the level. And people don't realize, may not, but that Lakeland, that bus ride, Venice, that bus ride, several hours, not the easiest bus ride to do. To get off, you got to settle in, and then you got to play. And what got me with all the teams we saw is they all showed in the biggest stage, whether they had 10,000 people there or 20,000. The nighttime games tended to have a little more energy, but there was also a lot of energy for Lakeland and more of the daytime game. And the moment's not too big. And I think a lot of that speaks to, I didn't dive too much into this all season because I did mostly baseball, but those 7-on-7 tournaments that we see a lot of that going on. These star players are always playing. Maybe not getting the physical contact, as your body can only take so much, but they're playing and they're traveling, they're going up against the best, and they're being showcased. And let's face it, everyone wants to be seen, everyone wants that opportunity, and Lakeland and Venice certainly are as good as anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And with Venice, I mean, John Peacock, he's really created just a powerhouse over there in Sarasota County. And you got Lakeland out of Polk County, who would be the perennial state title contender. And these two teams, I feel like, are on a collision course to have a rematch once again in Class 4S. And I would not be surprised if we're talking about the same two teams come December, and they're gunning for one another. And I know, based on kind of I'll call it Twitter banner, because that's basically what's going on between the two schools and it's almost like when one gets a transfer, the other gets a transfer, and however these things are happening, they're happening. And they're just monitoring each other from afar. They're obviously not going to play each other during the regular season. Lakeland's got their schedule they got to worry about. Venice has 8 home games. Talk about being able to never have to play away from home, other than they got to go to Travis Powell one time this season and face a rejuvenated Miami Northwestern team under a former wide receiver, Michael E. Harris. That'll be one Venice's toughest games of the year. But these two teams, I mean, they really are just, I feel like they're the two forces that are going to collide, and I just feel like we can see it a mile away, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun the next few months just to see how this all kind of transpires and culminates into when we go to they haven't said it's at DRV Stadium. We're just going to guess it'll be down there again, but who knows? The FHSA could have it somewhere else. But I mean, one team we didn't get to mention, and you mentioned the droves of people coming in and watching those state championship games. And there was a team that did bring them in by the thousands. Yeah. And that is Columbus.
The 6A. And we might have a rematch in the 6A finals as well from last year.
Columbus Explorers and Apopka Blue Darters, they gave us probably an all-timer in the Class 4M state championship game. It went to overtime, and we saw something reminiscent of the Philly, except on the high school level. The Explorer is as they called it, and they pulled it off and were able to win it all. And the Explorers bring back Alberto Mendoza, James Madison commitment at quarterback. I don't think he brings the pizzazz that you would say a Cedric Bailey or or one of these other quarterbacks that wants to run around and kind of buy time with his legs. Not that Alberto's not fleet-footed himself, but he's more the pocket passer. He's more the field general, gonna kind of make sure things are in order. And I like this Explorers team. I think Dave Dunn has a really good, disciplined team and talent to boot. Joe, what are the things you like about this Columbus team heading to the season?
Well, yeah, like you said, Mendoza and I'm on baseball mode. I had 6A. You corrected me. 4M in high school football. But yeah, Columbus, again, they're battle tested being down here. They play everybody. But there's a toughness to that kid. You know, that kid, I've seen him put his head down and pick up big yards. And then, they, to win that state championship in a low scoring game in a comeback fashion, and then they go to overtime, and you pull off the trick play, and he's the guy catching the ball on it. He's a leader. That's the thing. He's a leader. There's a belief there, and like you say, they can bring fans. We saw that place fill up. Messi's going to pack that place now. Down.
Oh yeah,
and Columbus did a pretty good job of giving it a little bit of a run for the money. But again, it's just the depth and the amount of players that we have down here and then across the state of Florida. But I wouldn't be shocked unless I don't think you would either if we don't see Columbus and Apopka back on the playing for it all again in 23.
Yeah, and Joe's going to be down there, South Florida. That is where the hub of high school football really is. It takes place. I mean, not that there isn't. There's plenty of good teams all across the Sunshine State, all throughout. You go to Naples, you got the Golden Eagles. You go up a little further north, you got Venice. You move a little bit inland, you got Jesuit.
I had a good time, talking to people from Jesuit. I know they ran into a buzzsaw when they played St. Thomas in the playoffs, but that's a highly, highly quality, championship caliber program as well.
Yeah, Jesuit. I mean, they bring back Will Griffin at quarterback, a good sized kid. I believe when they played during the season, he had Luke Knight, and then he ended up transferring out after that game, and he went to Merritt Island. Now he's back in the Tampa Bay area playing for Wiregrass Ranch. But Will Griffin, good looking kid. About 6'5", 230 pounds. He's kind of like more of your throwback kind of quarterback. But thing is, with that size, he can run. So the Tigers, they'd like to be in that state championship conversation again in Class 3M. But when you got a team like St. Thomas Aquinas waiting for you at the state semis, I think it's just it's tough sledding to get all the way to states. But the Tigers did win one in 2021, so they know what it takes to get there and win it all. It's just, do they have the proverbial horses to be able to do so? And that's where it's going to be. Only time will tell. We'll be able to see later down the road. And there's other teams throughout. Tampa Bay Tech. You got Edgewater. Jones is a team that's actually going to play Jesuit at Camping World Stadium on August 18th. For preseason action. So that's going to be a matchup to watch for when we're talking about kickoff classics. Move a little further north. Miami Central is going to actually play Ocala Vanguard on the 18th as well. And that's a game I'm looking to head to. And I mean, Vanguard's got some talent over there. Fred Gaskin III is a very talented athlete. Not quite sure where he'll play on the next level. I would think offense, because he's a very gifted runner with the ball, but we'll see. But yeah, I mean, football season, I'm doing the countdown, Joe. We're about a month away. So, I mean, hey, we're going to keep an eye on it. We're going to do this every week, and we'll definitely, we'll keep in touch about what's going on in South Florida, what's going on around the state when it comes to high school football, because we know this is one of the top states in the country when it comes to high school football. And of course, California and Texas right there, and Georgia's coming along too. So we got the Sunshine State, one of the leaders in high school football. But any final thoughts, Joe?
No, you got me pumped up for this now, Andy. I'm looking forward to next month. I'm looking forward to getting this thing rolling and put the ball on the tee. And I mean, we got some media days leading into when like St. Thomas has their showcase that ESPN's going to have, where St. Thomas is playing and Chaminade's playing, and later that night American Heritage is going to be playing. Teams from out of state are coming in. It was a great classic that we saw last year. I'm looking forward to all that stuff, and yeah, like I said, this is my second year going now with SBLive, and we have a lot better footing on all this stuff and getting the inroads, and again, the kids make it fun to cover, and we want to present to our audience to deliver what they're doing and inform and enlighten, and then hopefully entertain a little bit as well as we move forward. Look forward to it, Andy. Thanks.
Hey, thank you, Joe. And that is Joe Frisaro. I'm Andy Villamarzo. Looking forward to presenting the Coastal here moving forward. So high school football right around the corner.